What's up, fam? Nothing near post here. Hope everybody's doing well. What a wild week we had. Pretty fun to jump into this, but um, I'm Silbs. Nothing near post here. Episode 3. We're excited to continue to kind of cover college lacrosse. Talk a little bit about everything that happened over the weekend and have some fun with it. So, jumping right in, first segment, line drills. All right, for those that are new, line drills, we talk about stuff that non-lacrosse related. First thing I want to know is, what'd you watch on Sunday night? Was it the Daytona 500? Incredible OT finish. Was it the NBL All-Star Game, which hopefully nobody watched? SNL 50-year anniversary, which I saw some clips. Looked pretty good. Certainly in a powerful room in there, but certainly have their undertones. Or was it something else? Maybe you watched a rerun of Princeton Penn State like I did. But certainly Sunday night was a night for the books. What else we got? Nothing near post. We want to salute Coach Linton, the head basketball coach at Tufts University. He earned his 100th career win as a head coach. Got a little hairy, but the Bows found a way to come back and beat the Bates Bobcats to secure Coach Linton's 100th. So shout out to him and Stick Taps. What else we have? Four Nations hockey tournament that's going on. It's been incredible. Really high level of hockey, and we got the championship game coming up on Thursday. 8 o'clock coverage begins, probably 8:20 puck drop happening at TD Garden. Championship game, U.S.-Canada. Saturday's U.S.-Canada game up in Montreal was absolutely nutty. I mean, the Sweden-Finland game went to overtime as well. I was Nothing Near Post was in the building on Monday night, up in the nosebleeds with the real fans, and to be honest, it was a touch underwhelming, unfortunately. But game didn't matter. Went to go see U.S. Sweden. Certainly, Swedes showed why they're one of the best teams in the world, and quite honestly, I don't think they're getting enough attention. They've got an OT loss to Canada, an OT loss to Finland, and then they beat the U.S. and they're not playing in the championship game, so they don't have a regular time loss, and they're still not really getting much for it. But they certainly took it to the U.S. and played clamps on. They put the clamps on the U.S. even though they were a little bit shorthanded, but still cool to be in the building. Thursday should be electric with the U.S. and Canada. Make sure you tune into that. Quick line drills there. Let's jump into a new segment I'm going to call Scorebug. It's where we look at scores from around the country that we aren't going to cover anywhere else really in the pod in depth. So first off, I want to tell you it's official. Every Division I lacrosse team has played a game. The Lemoyne Dolphins were the last team to play, and they kicked off their season with an 11-10 win over their upstate foe, the Canisius Griffins. And what I think we can all agree on was the worst stream of the season, and there's no shot that'll be topped. That'll certainly take the throne at the end of the year. Hopkins won the Battle of Charles Street. 9-8 victory behind a 4-1 day from attackman Russell Melendez, who got his fourth as the game winner on extra man with 41 ticks left. Duke survived St. Joe's 11-9 in Durham. And the team that's quickly taking the title of America's team from NJIT last year, the VMI Keydets, got a road win over the Mercer Bears 14-11 and covered the 2.5 spread, which I know a lot of lacrosse gambling Twitter was fired up about. And then we also had opening weekend for the Ivy League. Villanova spoils Yale's season opener with a 13-11 win on the main line. And then Yale got the gift of Army coming to town on Wednesday for another L, and this one of the capital L variety with a 14-3 drubbing. UPenn loses a rock fight to Georgetown 8-6 in the nation's capital. Fairfield beats Brown in convincing fashion 11-5, and then Brown has the same fate as Yale as BU handed them their second loss of the young season 8-7 on Tuesday. The winners in the Ivy League, you had Saturday, Dartmouth gets the upset win in Hanover over Bucknell 13-11. Harvard sneaks past Providence 12-10 on the road. But then, similar to their counterparts in Yale and Brown, they followed up with a Tuesday home loss to Colgate. And on Colgate Raiders, everyone is learning what the year 2 Judd Lattimore effect is all about. Keep an eye on the Raiders going forward. Other winners, Cornell proves why everyone's high on them in an 18-10 road win over the Lehigh Mountain Hawks. And Princeton gets the OT win, which we'll dive into come the fourth quarter here. So that's the score bug. Jumping into 4 quarters, all right. Quarter 1, cover the Army-Rutgers game. Nothing near Post's official ticket. Was really high on Army here. Had big units on it, so we're going to cover it a little bit. Gave a shout out last week to the Delaware equipment staff for Delaware's kit, but I'm going to do the same here for the Army equipment staff. The black shorts contrasting with the white top and black numbers, and the all white helmet, including the mask, was a fire look. Almost stormtrooper-esque. It was awesome. Army defense started really strong in the first, including their goaltender Sean Byrne, who was very sharp early, and he's quickly becoming a top name in the country for sure, especially with what he did today to Yale. Although that was probably more of a team effort. Sean just did his job in net, but still, he's having a killer beginning to this season, and he's going to be a huge piece of their success, the Black Knights' success going forward. It's kind of interesting. Rutgers called a defensive timeout at the end of the first after an Army offensive rebound, and Scarlet Knights came out in zone, looking to see if they could slow some things down. Army gets a look, but Big Ten Freshman of the Year Carden Stoller in net for the Scarlet Knights made a stop in tight on Ethan Plunkett. Similar situation in the second quarter. Army gets another offensive rebound. No timeout this time. Rutgers falls right into their zone. Clearly something that they had in the scouting report. And instead of an inside look for Plunkett, Gunnar Fellows feeds the crease from X. Instead of feeding the crease from X, Gunnar Fellows, he skips it through to the point for a step down from Aiden Weisenborn for a 3-0 lead. So certainly Gunnar Fellows making some good reads against that zone, which was cool to see. Army thwarted the last possession of the quarter by Rutgers, by the last possession of the first quarter by Rutgers, capping off a clean sheet in that first quarter. Rutgers, they were overmatched, which is crazy. I mean, Army is certainly a top 10 team for a reason. I think deservedly so. Unlike I was talking about last week, where you got teams in the top 20 that have won to start the year and never played a game, and two maybe snuck by, we'll say, Providence Friars team, and they move up in the standings. But Army is certainly a top 10 team and will be for the rest of the year. But Rutgers kept trying to flip the momentum and cover for their shortcomings of their offense with a 10-man ride in the second quarter. Got one off a lost backup, but Sean Byrne pots one from the top of the box, 60 yards out, to be one of the many goalie goals we've seen since we last recorded. And Sean Byrne's this one against Rutgers would have counted with our nothing near post proposed rule change to the 10-man, where you got to be outside of your defensive box. But one other piece I wanted to talk about with that rule change with the 10-man. So to recap, proposed rule change is it can't be considered a shot unless you're outside of your defensive box. All right, but now if you are inside of your defensive box and you quote unquote shoot it looking for backup, it's not going to count as a shot. You can't chase that out. It'll be like sixes, where if it goes out of bounds, it's off you, or whoever goes out of bounds off of, it's going to go the other way. So kind of continuing to build on that rule change. It'd be interesting to see if we ever get something like that, but I can live in my own fantasy land, because that's what we're doing over here. But Rutgers stayed committed to the 10-man even after Sean potted one from 60 plus. But they stayed committed to it. But Army broke it again at the end of the second quarter with a tough ground ball pickup in the offensive end after Sean Byrne actually just Gilmaned one deep. And that tough ground balls are for winners, man. Tough ground ball led to an Evan Plunkett tap in goal after some tic-tac-toe passing. But Army was in control. Rutgers avoided the first half naked lap on a goal by Colin Kurdila. It was assisted by TJ Cooney in transition, so they get on the board, and it was crazy. Can't remember exactly what the score was in the first half, but I mean, Army was in complete control, maybe 7-1, something like that. But Rutgers was dominating at the faceoff X. Started the game winning 7 straight. And what's cool is Rutgers' draw man was a Union College transfer, Matthew Pauletto. He made Army's All-American draw man Will Coletti look pedestrian, quite honestly. He went 12 for 15 on the day, and that's 80% for those of you keeping track at home, and he even added an assist. But it's really too bad because Rutgers' defense is good, which we'll talk about here in a second. Obviously got really good play from their face-off man, the Union transfer, but their offense just can't find ways to get it done, and we certainly talked about that after week 1 in their win at Lehigh. But that Rutgers defense, like I said, top half unit in the Big Ten, and it's cool to see Ithaca College grad Jimmy Ryan captaining that defense. Defensive coordinator Jimmy Ryan. He's certainly captaining that defense, but their offense just they can't hold up their end of the bargain, man. It's really tough. They're gonna have to find ways to get W's, but going to be really hard with their schedule for sure. But bottom line, Army's defense is legit, led by Sean and net. They showed it again today against Yale, but the Patty League's going to have to get creative when they get to league play, putting goals up on the board. That Army defense, led by number 99 John Sullivan, number 79 Ryan Nixon, and number 20 AJ Palat. And then an absolute dude at LSM and Christian Fournier. He's all over the place, making plays. And then they got Aiden Weisenborn for some depth down there as well. So they got 5-6 guys that can run at you with long poles that are awesome. And that doesn't even talk about the short stick D middies they've got balling out. Army's going to be a tough out. And like I said, they're going to be a top 10 team for the entire year. No question about it. And I mean, hot take. I'll say it. We're going to see the Black Knights on Memorial Day weekend. All right, jumping into the second quarter. Cuse, Maryland. All right, first time the Orange were outside of the friendly confines of JMA Wireless Dome, and it was a wet, cold day in College Park, and remember that. Remember that line. All right, refs were swallowing their whistle early, letting them play some big boy lacrosse, which was cool. Trey Deer went around the world from Spolina to open the scoring. Youth coaches everywhere were certainly cringing, but I think they should be celebrating it and talking about the hard work it takes to add that to the arsenal of your stick skills, right? These guys don't just do stuff that they don't practice. And that goes for the behind the backs. That goes for the underhand flips. It goes for all of it. Guys work on that stuff. And I think as youth coaches, we should embrace that, right? You can certainly have some fun. This is the creator's game. It should be fun. It should be fast-paced. It should be creative. But you certainly have to work on it. And if they don't ever work on it, they certainly shouldn't be doing it. But the guys that work on it are really damn good at it. And Trey Deer opened the scoring with that around the world look. It was awesome. Terps get their first from Stowball, a lefty high-to-high, absolute fireball to get things rolling. Cuse was actually... it was a great battle in the first half. They were getting Cuse was getting multiple offensive rebounds off of Logan McNaney's saves, but couldn't get much out of it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in their 6v6 offense. Although those offensive rebounds usually kill a team defensively, right? You got to play, we'll say, 60 seconds of defense, and then you got to do it all over again. Those offensive rebounds usually lead to really good looks and a tough day for the defense, but the Terps flipped the script, which we'll talk about. Michael Leo, midfielder, left-handed midfielder for the Cuse. He was actually held in check pretty good. He earned the pole whenever he was out there, and that was clearly a really good play by Coach Tillman and Coach Bernhardt, keeping him in check and holding their offense completely in check throughout the game. Then we had the Schaller-Spolina matchup. All right, Spolina's first assist to Trey Deer came off a ball movement, so not gonna hold Schaller accountable to that one. Schaller gets the first one on Spolina on the first ISO dodge from X, creating a turnover. Spolina gets one on Schaller on his second kind of ISO dodge from Max. He goes righty top side and cans it, but Spallina also got another one going up the righty alley, or excuse me, up the righty hash, but he needed a perfect pick from Sam English on that low righty wing to get his hands free. He did do his part by getting it past McNaney off stick side high near post, which was a great look, but he needed that Sam English pick. So I think on the day, you certainly got to give Schaller the win there. Now, speaking of that Maryland defense, when A.J. Larkin is your number 2, your defense is extremely formidable. Not to mention Colin Burlace as your third, and I don't want to disrespect Colin Burlace like that, but those 3 dudes could all be ones on pretty much any other team in the country. But because of those 3 guys, Cuse had to consistently rely on pick play in nearly every dodging scenario, which was not something that we had seen up until this point. Now, yes, the Terps are a totally different animal than the teams that Cuse had seen, but still, with Cuse's high hopes this year, it was crazy to see that they had to rely on that pick play to be able to create some type of advantage with the ball carrier. But they were picking everywhere, at X, on the low wing, on the top corners. There wasn't a spot on the field that Cuse didn't try to utilize a pick to get that extra step, and it was what they had to do. So it was an adjustment that they had to make. What else we got on this game? The last thing I'll talk about, the 11th goal for the Terps, the old dreaded near post stick side high. You hate to see it, but that was certainly the nail in the coffin, if not the goals before that. So we hate to see the near side goals here at NNP, but especially the stick side high ones, man, tough to see. But what I really wanted to get into, we're going to do this for 2 quarters here. I want to look at the efficiencies. All right, so efficiencies in college lacrosse have certainly become a focal point for coordinators, both offensively and defensively. And we're going to look at it in sort of two breakdowns here: 6v6 efficiency and transition efficiency, because those are 2 different parts of the game, right? 6v6 efficiency is just 6v6 settled possession. What's the outcome? Goal or not? Right? Doesn't have to be a turnover or anything like that. It can be a shot back up. It can be, unforced error by the offense. Whatever the case might be, it's either goal or not. That's your 6v6 efficiency. Okay, and if we look at the Terps, they went 8 for 25 in 6v6 efficiency for 32%. I'd say the standard to what teams are shooting for is north of 40%. So the Terps were short of that 40% number, and that's because Coach O'Dearna and the Cuse defense, they've got a great game. They do a lot of things really well. So holding the Terps team under 40 is certainly something that they can build on for the Cuse. But 8 for 25, and you look at the breakdown, Terps were 2 for 6 in the first quarter, 1 for 7 in the second quarter, 2 for 6 in the third quarter, and then this is where it got away from the Cuse, but they were 3 for 6 in the fourth quarter. All right, and I actually removed the 1 strategic shot clock violation from that efficiency to get them to their 8 for 25 and 32% overall. Now, this is where it was surprising to me. The Cuse offense, 6 for 24, 25% on the day. And this is clearly where the discrepancy in the game was, and there was actually one other we'll talk about in the transition, but you're not going to win very many games when you're 25% in 6v6 efficiency. It's just not. You're not putting yourself in a position to be successful. But the Cuse, 2 for 7 in the first quarter, so they were getting their chances. 3 for 6 in the second quarter. Okay, come out of halftime, Coach Tillman got on the iPad. Coach Bernhardt, and Coach Tillman dialed up the second half, and the Cuse goes 1 for 7 in the third quarter and 0 for 4 in the fourth quarter. And that's how they get to their 6 for 24. So second half really flipped the script. If you look at second half numbers alone, Terps go 5 for 12, just under 50%, and the Cuse goes 1 for 11. Just a tough second half there for Cuse to overcome for sure. Now, if we look at transition efficiency, all right, this is where I think, honestly, the Terps won the game. All right. Terps only gave up 2 transition opportunities for the Orange, and the Cuse put up a bagel in both. 0 for 2 in their transition opportunities, both coming in the second half. Terps controlled the pace to exactly the pace that they wanted. All right, the Terps went 1 for 3 for 33% efficiency. Again, that's lower than you want to be. In transition, you want to be 50%, I think. But nonetheless, what these numbers tell me is that the Terps controlled the pace to exactly how they want to play. And I tweeted this out on Saturday, but the Terps just play boring ball. But boring is effective. All right. And then the other differentiator here was the extra man. Terps were 2 for 2. I removed the one opportunity where they were trying to just kill the clock late in the game. But the Cuse did go 1 for 1 on a highlight reel ball movement look, which was just awesome. But yeah, Terps 2 for 2, Cuse 1 for 1 in EMO, and that gets you to their goal totals. So kind of a cool thing. We're going to look at efficiencies for another game here, but just thought it was really interesting to break it down that way. But to put a bow on this one, Eric Spanos added some bulletin board material after the game in his presser. He said, "This ain't the Dome. It ain't 70 and sunny in College Park," which I told you to remember my opening line. You know, a wet and cold day down there in College Park. So Spanos coming out with some of that bulletin board material, but I thought they were bold words from Spanos when there's a strong possibility that these two teams see each other again come May. But yeah, all in all, a great game, heavyweight fight for sure. So third quarter here, jumping into UVA Richmond. Huge upset on Saturday. All right, Max Merklinger opened the scoring for the Spiders and the game, making it 1-0. And if my memory serves me right, which I'm pretty sure it does, Max Merklinger was a very late recruit for the Spiders, playing well into the summer following his junior year before anyone took notice. And I believe he was coming off a knee injury and playing with a knee brace that spring for his high school team, Seton Hall Prep, and that summer for his club team, Steps. Shout out Coach Matt Kovalchik. But it was awesome to see him being successful on the national stage. Great story for all the guys out there who don't commit early. Just keep at it, right? Keep at it. You're going to find a spot for you that makes sense. Okay, but speaking of Max and the Richmond offense, in a world where everyone's base offense is some form or variation of pairs, it was really cool to see the Spiders playing a more traditional 1-4 shape with sort of wing dodges that morph into a 2-2 shape every once in a while, just with some of their push-pull on the edge as off-ball guys were reacting to the dodger. But from behind, it was almost exclusively 2-2-2 for the Spiders with the roll-off. All right, more people still play this 2-2 shape from behind because of the success Sean Kerwin had with it, which, ironic, during his time in Charlottesville, he brought that to the national stage. But both of them were cooking early, all right, because of the crease presence of Lucas Littlejohn, the Cortese, Ontario native. Of note, speaking of that offense, the Spiders scored on their first 4 6v6 possessions. And we'll look at their full efficiency here at the end. But you go 4 for 4 on your first 6v6 possessions. That's one way to take the air out of Klockner and really put yourself in a position to be successful on the day. Now, they had to finish the job, which they clearly did, but they had great success early. But both teams actually showed a little bit of 10-man. All right, but Richmond was more than ready for UVA's 10-man. They never forced something into the teeth of the ride, and actually instead they were like slightly pushing aside and then immediately reversing it, usually back to the box side, which traditionally is a no-no, but that east-west swinging of the rock didn't allow for UVA to set up their traps and double teams around the midline. Or even, opposite the box in that top corner. And honestly, the box side tactic must have been a tell on film that the staff uncovered. Incredible preparation by Coach Tremonti and his staff, which they're absolutely known for, but even better execution by his guys on the field. And like I said, Richmond flipped the script and turned UVA over with their 10-man. Which I thought was awesome to see fight fire with fire. I was actually speaking with a coach this weekend during a little X's and O's session, and he was talking about how scary it is to run the 10-man and, if maybe only do it a couple times a game, but if you're playing against somebody, it gets even scarier because maybe they're better than you, or they're more athletic than you, or they're a high flying offense. They like to play fast. So why run the 10-man and speed them up? To be honest with you, fight fire with fire. All right, the 10-man is something that I think is a really cool part of the game. I know there's some coaches out there that are very anti 10-man for one reason or another, whether it's because it's not in the it's not part of the game, or they don't think they can coach it really well, or their guys can't run it. I think anybody can run it, and quite honestly, it can level the playing field for a team that may not be as capable athletically. That's just my opinion, but certainly hit me up in the comments. We can talk more about it. But one other item I wanted to mention about UVA's 10-man, they did not seem to pressure the ball at the lowest layer of Richmond's clearing shape, which was their goalie and defenseman. All right. This led to a 55-yard goal by the short stick and a few deep looks to the attackmen in the corners, where those goalies and defensemen could throw a deep ball with no ball pressure, allowing them to survey and put an accurate pass to those deep corners. Usually those deep corners are left open because that's a long pass to make, one, but two, you've got at least a little bit of ball pressure to make those ball carriers think about it and not be able to survey and put a good pass there. But I've personally seen the most successful 10-man running teams draw a line saying this is where we start to pressure the ball. Top of the box, 5 yards outside the box. Teams certainly want to drop back because they want to shrink the field, hence why you don't pressure down to goal line extended, but no pressure at all on the bottom line, which is the goalie and the defenders, is not a consistent recipe for success in my mind, because those guys can just survey, find where it needs to go, and put it there. So certainly something to keep an eye on, see if UVA changes that at all. Looking at some other aspects of this game, Jack Walsh, the graduate student, has a left-handed cannon for the Wahoos, as does Colsey. Colsey needs others to get his hands free, but Walsh can certainly separate and let it fly. But nonetheless, these dudes can shoot the piss out of it, and Colsey's stroke is certainly a thing of beauty. So any lefties out there, get eyes on those two guys. They can shoot the rock for sure. UVA split goalies last week between Kyle Morris, who started, and then Nunes, who played most of the second half. This week, they left Kyle Morris in there to start the second half. You got to believe it was due to the way that he was playing with his 8 saves in the first half, even though they were I think they were down at halftime. But you got to look the other side of the field. Vigu for the Spiders. Zach Vigu looked great. And to be honest, it looks like he's dropped some weight too, and I wonder how that's impacted him both mentally and physically. He had 14 saves, 10 goals against for a 58% save percentage in the upset win. And the North Carolina native out of Apex had an awesome day for the Spiders and was a huge part of their success. So really, really cool to see. Let's jump into the 6v6 efficiency here again. All right. Quinn Kesnick on the call mentioned that the Wahoos only scored 6v6 goals in their 19 win over Colgate, and that actually led me to want to track UVA and Richmond's efficiencies as well. Got to do the math real quick here, but let's see what we got here. We had the Wahoos. What do we got? Doing the math. All right. Wahoos on the day go 5 for 20 for a 25% efficiency. And I know UVA wants to play faster than that with more looks, and we'll talk a little bit about where their other looks came from, but only 26-on-6 possessions seems like a low number, but it'll make sense when we talk about their transition. But nonetheless, 25% ain't going to get it done. UVA went 2 for 6, 1 for 4, 1 for 5, 1 for 5 in the quarters. So tough day, 6v6. They'll certainly get that tightened up. But Richmond, got to give them credit defensively. They were ready and found ways to keep the ball out of the net, plus of VU's outstanding play. Richmond 6v6, already mentioned it, scored on their first 4 6v6 possessions, ended up going 5 for 7 in the first quarter, 0 for 9 in the second quarter, 2 for 4 in the third quarter, and 0 for 6 in the fourth quarter. Crazy to think about. They were in control for the game, but they go 0 for in the second, 0 for 9 in the second, and 0 for 6 in the fourth. So their total for the day was 7 for 26 for a 27% efficiency. Both really low numbers, but both defensive coordinators got to be fired up about the effort that 6v6 they put out there for sure. Now, transition tells a different story. All right, UVA had 14, by my count, 14 transition opportunities, scoring 5. They went 0 for 3 in the first quarter, 0 for 3 in the second quarter, 2 for 3 in the third quarter, and 3 for 5 in the fourth quarter to get them a 5 for 14 percentage, or excuse me, 5 for 14 on the day, which, if I'm doing my math, just shy of 36%. All right. So again, below that threshold of 50, especially for UVA, who loves to play fast and has all of that skill at the attack position and in their rope unit. Richmond, on the other hand, 6 transition opportunities and potted 4 of them. All right, potted 4 of them out of 6, which is clearly above that 50% number at 67%, and change the game. Change the game. Those are momentum goals for sure. Now, granted, they had less than half of the transition opportunities that UVA did, and if UVA is able to bring their percentage up to 50, score 7, they're right in it. Maybe the game's a little different, but shout out to Richmond's game plan for keeping them out of, or for making transition tough. Transition defense is really, really difficult to execute and be successful with, but the Spiders found a way. The Spiders found a way. So yeah, we'll see if we come back to those efficiency numbers, but really cool, different way to look at the game, and an inside look into how these coordinators are sort of tracking things. 6v6 efficiency and transition. It was also funny post game, right? Richmond gets a huge win, program defining win, season defining win. Now you got to build on it for sure, but Richmond SID department tweets the post game graphic with the words "Virginia belongs to Richmond." Them are fighting words for sure. Richmond is the capital of the state, but are they saying that Richmond's now the lacrosse capital as well? I don't know, Spiders. I don't know, but certainly Richmond Spiders are going to be a formidable force in the A10 for sure. So on a related but unrelated note to this game, I found a particular common thread interesting. All right. Both offensive coordinators are Duke grads and were teammates for 3 years. All right, so you got Kevin Cuse for UVA, a 2003 grad of Duke. And then you got Dan Chamati, who's also the head coach, but also the offensive coordinator for Richmond, who's a 2002 grad. Cuse left his head coaching position at Lehigh, where he had the program humming, no doubt about it, to become a coordinator at UVA, I think 2 years ago now. In what many thought was a move to get closer to the ACC, with the thought being he needed ACC experience to be the heir apparent for when Coach Danowski hangs up his whistle in Durham. But with Coach Chamati having his name etched in the history books after a 2012 national championship during his time as the offensive coordinator for the Loyola Greyhounds, and today's performance of his team, especially in the head-to-head with Cuse, Duke alums and the AD over there have options when Coach Danowski does decide to hang it up. And of course, I have to believe Coach 40, Matt Danowski, wants the gig, but I'll be the one to say it. Both of these guys are more qualified, and one other name that's certainly qualified for that job, if and when it comes available, is Taylor Ray, head coach at St. Joe's. Now, this is all speculation by me. None of them have said they wanted the job. I'm just connecting some dots while I speculate. Now, I will say when I was doing some research, it's worth mentioning that Coach Cuse was an absolute stud of a player, 3-time All-American, twice as a first teamer when he played at Duke, ACC Player of the Year in 2001, and was awarded the Lieutenant Donald McLaughlin Jr. Award as the nation's top midfielder in 2002. And this 2002 was the same year that he donned the red, white, and blue for Team USA as they went to Perth, Australia, and defended their gold medal. So, as a current college guy, because he graduated in 03, current college guy, he was on Team USA. I'd be interested to know the whole list of current college players who represented the U.S. on the world stage in those international tournaments. All right, the two I know, Coach Cuse and everybody remembers Brennan O'Neill, both happen to be Dukies. I'm curious if the NNP fam out there know of any more current, at the time, current college guys who played for Team USA. Really cool to see both. Really cool to learn that there's two of them at least, and they're both Dukies. So that certainly speaks volumes to the program down there in Durham. But just an interesting tidbit that I found. So let me know in the comments or on Twitter if there's any others that come to mind for you as current college guys that played for Team USA, because I'd love to compile that list. All right, so now we jump into the fourth quarter. We're going to dive deep into this one. Princeton, Penn State. All right, battle to decide who is the superior species of large cat. First and foremost, it is diabolical to use a neon green ball when playing in Habula Hall, the indoor facility at Penn State. Yes, neon green is better than white, but it's still not dark enough to contrast, in my opinion. There were white walls that cover the entire facility. I know this from watching, but it's also from personal experience. But I do think back then, even when I played inside, we used an orange ball. But I will say choosing a ball color for indoor games or outdoor games in the snow, which, again, white backdrop, has a history of stemming from the home coaching staff thinking a certain color ball gives them an advantage, because the home staff makes that call, or at least brings it to the opposing coach, and they have to agree on it. But either the home goalie has adapted to the environment, and the opposing goalie has not. So the white or the light colored ball on the white backdrop, snow, or the white walls gives the home team the advantage in net. Or the thought process is the opposing goalie is better than the home goalie, and the white ball or the light colored ball levels the playing field a bit, neutralizing some of the opposing goalie's superiority. Or a third way it could go, home goalie's better, and the home coaching staff wants to be sure it stays that way, so they choose the color of the ball that their goalie wants. Now, it all needs to be agreed upon, as I mentioned, by both coaching staff, but the home staff is the one who makes the suggestions to the away coach to agree to. So something that I just found interesting. Again, I was a goalie back in my day. Those backdrops are tough. Certainly something that I wanted to make note of. But while we're on the topic of goalies and Penn State, nothing near post needs to salute Penn State's all-time best netminder, Drew Adams. The dude was an absolute mutant in the best way possible. Long, rangy lefty, just an incredible player. And if you've never looked up Drew Adams, hell of a career for the Long Island Lizards, look him up. He was an absolute stud. But to be honest, it was the Princeton goalie, Ryan Craddock, who had a Drew Adams type day. He finished with 21 stops on the day. Just a huge day for him, which was cool, and a coming out party for him, quite honestly, with Gia Ficcaro heading down to Chapel Hill. So Princeton's offense, it was interesting and fun to watch. Almost completely positionless. Whatever adjective is more than free-flowing, it was that. Making it tough for Penn State's defense to stay organized, but also tough for the offense to get and stay organized. But this is expected early on in the year with any type of offense, but more difficult with such a free-flowing mindset for sure. But I will say the slight lack of organization on offense did not show up in their clearing game, which I could argue is even harder to execute early in a season. The Tigers were sharp not only with their scheme, but the players looked super comfortable with their reads and thinking through the coverage of the ride that they were seeing. It was just really impressive stuff from Princeton in the clearing game. On the flip side, Penn State seemed to struggle slightly against Princeton's ride. Um, it was interesting on the tape. The Tigers, thought you might have thought they were in 10 man. The bench was for every settled ride, and Penn State looked a touch out of sorts, which would lead you to believe that Princeton was up to something. But from looking at the box score, I don't think somebody was paying attention, keeping stats, because they said PSU was perfect clearing the ball in the second, and I know that wasn't the case. But as the game progressed, Penn State did settle in, and I don't think Craddock really ever left his net for a true 10-man look, but Princeton was up to something and certainly slowed Penn State down a bit in the clearing game. Now, with this free flow of Princeton's offense, one of the rules I think I deciphered was around their spacing. All right, when dodging from up top, especially to initiate, mostly only to initiate realistically, Princeton either had 2 or 3 players working together while the remaining offensive players were as close to GLE as possible, essentially creating a 2-on-2 or a 3v3 game within the game, right? They're playing 2v2 with a ton of space top center, or a 3v3 kind of weave action with a ton of space up top, a game within the game, taking away help defenders, making the offense's reads a lot easier. And it was really well done off the initiation, and it's ridiculously hard for a defense to deal with, because if you watched any of the man down film we broke down when we were in the lab, if you haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube. This makes the second slide and really any help much more difficult because of the space those guys have to cover to be a second slide or rotate into the ball. And it was incredible. Really cool to see it kind of unfold, and the way that they were splitting the defense apart gave Penn State some trouble. Now, granted, they had a great game plan and they executed pretty well, but it was cool to see, and I'm interested to see how Princeton and offensive coordinator Jim Mitchell continue to build on that spacing to initiate some of their offense. So keep an eye on that as we go forward. But when you have a guy named Coulter Mackesy who could shoot the piss out of it, it really doesn't matter what your offense is. End of the first quarter, he potted one lefty up the hash, dotting one to the near side high corner. But then Penn State's Hunter Aquino responded with the similar look of his own up the hash, near side high. And it was those 2 goals that ended the first quarter 4-3 in favor of the visiting Tigers. Mackesy got another one near post to open the scoring in the second, stretching the lead to 5-3. But Hunter matched him again near post up the lefty hash this time after a Princeton goal by Carson Kramer to make it 6-4. Now, speaking of Carson Kramer, this dude is a man. On the roster, he's listed at 6'5", 245, and a dude that big who moves like that usually plays on Saturdays in the fall. The guy's an absolute matchup nightmare. Keep an eye out for him as Princeton continues to roll through their schedule. But sticking with personnel, Princeton defensive midfielder number 4, Jackson Green, sophomore out of Rochester, New York. Obviously, shout out upstate. Dude's also a stud. Fastest man alive. Great on ball. He even added a goal on the day off of a clean save by Craddock and a long outlet that led to a one-man break. Alongside him is a stable of awesome D-middies. I wish I could tell you who they are, but the numbers were hard to read on the film, and there were no announcers calling this game because they moved it inside. But nonetheless, this group for Coach Jeremy Hirsch for Princeton will be a huge piece to the Tigers' success this year. And I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it, and I'll double down on it, triple down on it. D-midi is the hardest position on the field, so having that luxury of some depth and some talent at that spot is gonna lead to success for the Tigers more often than not. But Penn State went with a heavy dose of zone in the second quarter. After a timeout, ATO, that Princeton called with just under 90 seconds left in the half, they did come out in man, which I thought was interesting. And just like that, they get a stop, a clear, and a timeout of their own with 7 seconds left. And their own ATO results in a goal with those 7 seconds, leaving the score 8-6 at half with the Tigers still leading. So going to halftime, moving on to the third quarter of this game, could be defined as boring. Only one goal scored, but it was a masterclass in defense and goaltending. All right, Princeton strictly in a slow to go / matchup driven look, man to man, and Penn State seamlessly flowing between their man and zone defenses, with the zone being the bigger thorn in the Tigers' side, in my opinion. To be honest, Craddock for Princeton had a few muffins thrown at him throughout the quarter that the Princeton defense forced, for sure. He had 7 saves total in the third quarter, most of any quarter on the day. But yes, he made those 7 saves, and yes, Penn State may have taken some ill-advised shots, but those were mostly due to the Princeton defense doing their best Berlin Wall impression. But nonetheless, Craddock still had to make the saves and did. Fracione for Penn State made a few good ones of his own, including one in transition right off the old beanbag as he threw his entire midsection at an off-hip shot from the righty shooter spot in transition off the cross of Trainer. Off the point man for Princeton. But Penn State had one EMO opportunity in the third quarter. Again, I said there was only one goal scored. On their EMO opportunity, Princeton shut Trainer for this. This is the second time they shut him, and it worked again. And after my 4-man rant in the lab, I'm starting to think early in the year shutoff is the way to go. Teams haven't had enough time to prepare for it. Teams defensively haven't really shown it, so they're not going to prepare for it, or they're not going to spend as much time preparing for it offensively. But yeah, something to think about and keep an eye on. I know as the season progresses, teams will be more prepared for that shutoff, but Penn State didn't have an answer. Princeton shut Trainer top center, and they just tried to play 5v4, sort of 5 on a die, and couldn't get a good look. But also note in the third, one of Princeton's defenders went down with a non-contact lower body injury. Looked like an ankle, a foot, Achilles, something like that. I couldn't see the number clearly, but hopefully he's doing all right and he'll be able to return. So you get one goal in the third. 9-6 Princeton. Penn State gets 2 quick ones, one off of an invert with an inside roll, and the other in transition. So you got 9-8. Trainer, the one in transition, Trainer, it was in his Alex Ovechkin office, righty, low to high hammer time to make it 9-8. But then Mackesy, stud that he is, answers that goal lefty down the alley. But then on the ensuing draw, 4v3 leads to another Trainer laser from him out of his Ovechkin office. So we got 10-9. Okay, and then Trainer put the team on his back. He follows that up, his 2 transition goals up with a lefty sweep to knot the game at 10 with 5 minutes to play. But who knew that Trainer had that lefty sweep in his arsenal? Really, really cool to see out of the righty sharpshooter. So we got 10-10 with 5 minutes left. Both teams trade multiple empty possessions. Penn State's possessions were ending in Craddock saves. Princeton's ended with Penn State defensive pass breakups and knockdowns. Great stick work in the lanes by Penn State defense down the stretch. Trainer did have a backhanded look up the lefty hash at the buzzer that went begging just wide of the far post, and we head to OT. OT starts with McMeekin violation for going early, Princeton's face-off man, but from what I saw, he was right on it. Be interested to see what some of the face-off Twitter people have to say about that. I think his speed just spooked the referee, quite honestly. But ball don't lie, and the McMeekin jump, and McMeekin himself has Jackson Green as a teammate, thank goodness, who causes a clean cause turnover as he's defending on ball and a successful clear that leads to Coach Madelon timeout. So then Princeton's got the ball, timeout and overtime. ATO, to my surprise, Penn State goes with their man-to-man defense. Like I said, they've been going back and forth. I thought the zone was giving Princeton more troubles, but Penn State goes man. They do a good job thwarting the initial look that offensive coordinator Jim Mitchell drew up. But in the flow of the offense, the Tigers look to an invert look as they earned a switch onto attackman Nate Kabiri. You didn't hear that name very much in this breakdown because he had a quiet day. Tip of the hat to the Penn State defense for shutting him down. But Nate drives his left hand from X on the short stick, draws the slide of another short stick, which was interesting. Now, do you want to slide with a pole there? Yes. Does the offensive shape allow you to always? No, unless you're in one of those invert zones. But short stick on Nate, draws the slide of another short stick, and Nate rolls away to his right hand, throws it to X for a waiting Colin Burns. Because of the slide, the defender who was guarding Burns had to hang in front of the net for an extra second as a fill to cover up for the slider, as a two slide, as any good defender would do. And that extra second, coupled with that defenseman's false step in the wrong direction due to a Colin Burns head fake, Burns wins the race to GLE against his defender and pots the winner lefty turning the corner. So just a really good offensive play. It was interesting. Burns actually came up the left side. So Kabiri drives the left side, throws back. Textbook says push opposite. Burnsy gives a head fake opposite. Penn State defender takes a false step that way. Burns comes back ball side and wins it. And the Tigers escape Happy Valley with an 11-10 win. Just an incredible game. The premier name showed up on the stat sheet. Burns had a 4-0 day, including the game winners we just talked about. Mackesy was 5-1, and Trainer for the Nittany Lions was 5-0, but he did it on 15 shots. Again, decent shooting percentage, right? North of 30% there, 33. But the difference was Princeton's defense, with the backbone being their netminder, Ryan Craddock. Princeton heads home to the class of 1952 stadium for a date with the Terps on Saturday the 22nd, while the Nittany Lions will host the Midshipmen on Saturday in Happy Valley. That's our four quarters. All right. really four good games. Cool to see. So jumping into low to high here, segment where we just talk about random stuff that happened over the weekend on the field. First and foremost, University of Vermont's goalie coach Nick Fisher is an absolute unit. I love this guy. Ideal male body and a beautiful beard. He's in his third season on staff for the Catamounts. Last year he coached George Egan to an America East first team nod, and this was after in year one he coached Matt Schaefer in 2023 to a 9.77 goals against average and a 55% save percentage, both of which were good for 7th in the country. So shout out Coach Fisher, NNP, huge fan. Keep doing big stuff up there in Burlington. All right, Georgetown gets an 8-6 win, as we talked about in Scorebug. Incredible 8-6 win, knowing that they went 0 for 4 on extra man. All right. Now, what's crazy about 0 for 4 on extra man, this puts the Hoyas at 0 for 8 on the year on extra man. 0 for 4 in back-to-back games. They're going to have to figure that out if they want to get to where they as a team and the alums expect Georgetown to be. Speaking of extra man, AJ Marsh, LSM, plays top center for Navy's EMO unit. Clearly a top player in the country, fun to watch, but I think I might like his counterpart, Sean Gallagher, better as a player. Gallagher had another 4 caused turnovers, and he also added a goal. So 2 Navy goals in their Towson win, which Vegas had them as dogs, which was interesting. But 2 of their goals came from LSMs because Marsh had one in transition, as did Sean Gallagher. So keep an eye on number 37 for the Midshipmen. Fun player to watch. Everyone in the media was high on Providence after their opening 2 wins. Nothing near post was not. No knock on them. Just wasn't all that high on them. Definitely wouldn't have put them in the top 20, but they found a way to cover their cover against Harvard in their 2-goal loss. Spread was 3.5. But what was interesting in this one, which was identified by Lax Picks HQ on X or on Twitter, Providence almost had as many turnovers as they did shots. 21 turnovers to their 23 shots. Most likely a testament to an overwhelming Crimson defensive effort, but still, that's a crazy stat. What else we got here? Low to high. Villanova, big win in their home opener over Yale. Was it their home opener? Either way, Cats get a win. Attackman Matt Licata led all scorers with 4 goals. And that dude, Matt Licata, is quick as a hiccup. Plus, he's got great timing on his change of direction. So you better go Eagle or early to him if he gets a short stick matchup for sure. But he proved this weekend he will dodge a bad angle slide too, which I think is a great coaching and teaching point for Dodgers. You don't always have to move it when that slide comes. If you've already beat your on-ball defender clean and that slide man's got a tough angle, you can run right through the head of that stick and continue to put pressure on the defense. We had insane weather in the Denver-Salt Lake City game. Denver came out with a 10-8 come from behind win. It was 7-6 Utah going into the fourth, but then Denver rips off a 4-1 fourth quarter to win it. We'll talk about how coming up here in a minute. But from one comeback win to another, and this one was even bigger, Jacksonville was down 10-2 with 13:52 left in the third quarter. They ended up winning 15-12. Behind 4 how'd they do it? Behind 4 second half goals, which were his only 4 goals of the game, from junior midfielder out of Westboro, Mass, Jack Taylor. Around Jack Taylor's 4, the Dolphins had 7 other different goal scorers. All right, so 15 goals, 8 total goal scorers. In the biz, we call that a balanced attack effort for sure. That's all we got for low to high. Let's jump into Field Vision, segment where we talk about our gambling picks from the weekend. Nothing Near Post had a day you dream about. Plus 10 units on the day. We had a whale on Army at -1.5. We also had them at -4. That came through for us. We had the Catamounts covering against the Jaspers, and Death, Taxes, and Villanova lacrosse unders proven true once again. As they give up 24 total goals, only giving up 11 to Yale. Their over/under line was at 25. Only L on the card came in a 1-unit lay on the Hobart, Michigan over. Hobart ran out of steam in the second half and couldn't hold up their end of the bargain for that over there. That was a crowdsourced pick from a Hobart alum. Hate to see it, but hey, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that guy. He's usually got some decent ones. Sunday's picks, we had Navy plus 3.5. We always support the troops, and with that Navy plus 3.5 win, we had a weekend sweep for the troops. Big weekend for America. And then what else? What's next here? Next segment. Let's jump into it. Segment without a name. We haven't named this one yet, but this is where we're following trends throughout the year. Cuse Extra Man. Nothing Near Post here. We think they'll be the best extra man unit in the country by the end of the year. They actually dropped to 12th in the country with their 55.6% on the year. UVA man down. We're tracking that. This was a big point of emphasis in our ACC preview. UVA's man down unit was not very good last year. They had to find a way to tighten that up, and the Wahoos have. All right, the man down unit stays perfect on the year. They haven't surrendered a goal on 10 opponent attempts. That's the most attempts a man down unit has faced so far this year. The second highest unit, or excuse me, the unit with the second most attempts against without surrendering a goal is 4. So UVA has forced opponents into 0 for 10. Second most is 0 for 4, and that's both the Maryland Terps and the Dartmouth Big Green. Shout out Coach Kerwin up there in Hanover. And then the last thing that we're tracking right now in this segment without a name, ACC versus Big Ten. All right, we're just keeping a tally throughout the year whenever the ACC plays the Big Ten. Want to see who can take the title of best conference in the country, because I don't think it's the Ivy League this year. But 1-1 after the Terps get the best of Cuse. All right, and let's wrap this week's show up with our weekly awards. Okay, first we got the Diaper Dandies of the week. Those are our top performing freshmen. You had Hunter Aquino, midfielder for Penn State. He was 3-2 in their overtime loss to Princeton, but he was certainly a bright spot for them offensively. You had Will Goers, left-handed attackman for the Midshipmen. He was 4-2 in their quote-unquote upset win over Towson. But your top Diaper Dandy of the week belongs to Braden Fountain. Army left-handed attackman, 4-2 versus Rutgers, and he followed it up on Wednesday with a 3-1 effort in New Haven against the Elis. Next, I want to give out some game balls. Aiden O'Neill gets the first game ball. Richmond ex-attackman, quarterback in their offense to their upset victory over UVA. Also want to toss one out. Max Merklinger, shouted him out earlier for Richmond. He was 2-1 on the day. Definitely a staple in their offense and brought some poise and control to that offensive unit. So he gets a game ball. Christian Fournier, LSM for Army. He's just all over the field. And he was all over the field for a unit that only gave up 3 on Saturday. And then they give up 4 today against DL? Nope, 3. Back-to-back games we give up 3. Just insane. So shout out Christian Fournier. He gets a game ball. He also added a caused turnover on Saturday. Already called him out. Sean Gallagher gets a game ball from nothing near post here. The LSM for Navy. He had a goal, 4 ground balls and 4 caused turnovers and 1 ground ball. And last but not least, 2 game balls to the 2 senior attackmen for the Colgate Raiders, both with 8 points in their 19-14 win over Albany. Those are Rory Connor and Jack Turner. Connor was 6-2 against Albany, and Jack Turner was 7-1. Let's take a peek and see what they did against Harvard on Tuesday. Connor was Rory Connor was 3-1. Harvard held Jack Turner in check at 1-0. So good week by those guys. Definitely get a game ball from nothing near post. Keep an eye on Colgate. We got to get Colgate in a 4-quarter segment. Really break down what they're doing, because that second year Judd Lattimore effect is real. And then let's close out the show here. So we had Diaper Dandies, we had game balls, and this is what we're calling our top 6. Okay, where I get to pick who I thought was the top guy at their position this week. Okay, at attack, Cody Malowski, 5-2 for Denver in their win, come from behind win over Utah, and he needed every point as they trailed going into the fourth, and he rips off a 3-1 stat line in the fourth quarter for that win. All right, in the midfield, already talked about him, Jack Taylor for Jacksonville, 4-1, all in the second half, and their come from behind win. Top rope unit, also already talked about him, Jackson Green for the Princeton Tigers, short stick D-Mitty. He had a goal, and he had the caused turnover in a 1v1 dodging scenario on the opening possession of OT that led to the Princeton win. At the face-off X, Matthew Pauletto of Rutgers, the Union transfer. He was the main bright spot for the Scarlet Knights. 12-5, besides their defense, but their defense did their job. He was certainly a bright spot. 12 for 15 at the X, again, 80%. He had 5 GBs, and he assisted on one of the 3 goals the Scarlet Knights scored. And wouldn't you know it, again, D3 transfer, Union College, shout out, Derek Witherford. Defensively, it could go to any of the Terp defenders. So those other 2 guys, I'm I snubbed them on game balls. They deserve game balls themselves, but I'm giving the top 6 spot to AJ Larkin. He was a big part of shutting down the explosive Cuse offense, and he added a goal of his own in transition after GB off a caused turnover by the unit. So shout out AJ Larkin there for top six recognition. And then in goal, 3 guys realistically could have gotten it. Zach Vigu of Richmond for his 14 saves, 58% save percentage effort in their upset win. Certainly could have gone to Sean Byrne of Army, 10 saves for 77%. And he added a goal against the Rutgers 10-man. And then obviously followed it up on Wednesday with a great effort against Yale. But I'm giving the top 6 spot to Ryan Croddick of Princeton. 21 saves, 68%, and the OT win. All right. And I say this, he did it against all odds. Penn State, obviously, a great offensive team. And what I'm actually meaning by all odds, the lime green ball against the bright white walls. So shout out to all those guys making top 6 on this week's Nothing Near Post top 6. And that's all we got for this week's Nothing Near Post show. Thank you for listening, and let's get some interactions going on social, whether it's here in the comments section on YouTube or on Twitter. You can find me at Niner_M. That's underscore as in the the shape, the I don't know what you want to call that. It's not the word underscore. It's Niner_M. All right. And till next time, please respect rule number 1, because Coulter, Mackesy, and Hunter Aquino certainly don't. And what is rule number 1? Nothing near post.